Workplace Communications, the Basics. Chapter 1, The Keys to Successful Communication, Purpose, Audience, and Tone, by George J. Searles. Presented and narrated by 8LLehmkuhl. Hi, my name is 8LLehmkuhl, and I will be discussing Workplace Communications, the Basics, by George J. Searles, his 5th edition. This presentation will be focused on Chapter 1, which includes the key elements or key ingredients to successful communication. So with that said, let's get started. All workplace writing occurs with a specific purpose, and it's intended for a particular group. This can also be true if you're talking on the telephone or you're talking with someone in person. Keeping all this in mind, knowing your audience and how to get your intended message across while using the appropriate tone may seem obvious, but these are crucial elements. Purpose, audience, and tone. These are the elements or the ingredients that will determine if your communication is successful. 3. Let's look at purpose, which is a crucial key element. Similar to what a journalist might do, it's called the 5 W's. Knowing the who, what, where, when, and why. So in purpose, we're looking at 3 subcategories, which are record, request or provide information, or to persuade. So knowing what our purpose is, are we simply wanting to obtain a record? As outlined in the textbook, it talks about a caseworker interview with someone maybe wanting services. So a record is simply extracting information to determine if one has eligibility or not. When we talk about request or provide information, there's another example, such as a supply company. Can they provide a better product at a better price? So if I were a hospital requesting information on product XYZ and I wanted to know what their cost is, the counterpart of that is providing the information. The supplier would write back or send out a sales agent and outline what the prices are for their product and what their prices are. Finally, persuade. Persuasion is used a lot with nurses and doctors. And one example I'm going to give you. Let's say you have Mrs. Jones, who is on a morphine sulfate pump, and she's been having pain and she's been pressing her bolus doses and still has a pain level. I might contact the doctor and say, Dr. Smith, the morphine sulfate medication titrate still doesn't seem to be controlling Mrs. Jones' pain. She's used up all of her boluses and she still says her pain level's a 5/10. Now here's the persuasion part. Doc, would you like to change that order? Is there something else you would like to do? Workplace communication is often in the form of an email, letter, report, and it's tailored to its audience. And before you start to formulate this, you might want to ask certain questions. Am I writing to more than one person? What are the job titles of the individuals that the message is being prepared for? What does the individual or group already know about the subject matter to be presented? What do they need to know about the information? And what will I want them to do as a result of receiving it? And that overlaps some with purpose, but it's also important as we gear it towards our audience. And our audience members or participants can be broken down into 4 very broad categories in the way that we present our information. And that could be, the first is upward communication. That's someone who's in the hierarchy above you. An example of that would be an email from your supervisor. Lateral communication is just as it sounds. It's intended for those who are at the same level as you. Sometimes it's a little less formal, but it's an equal footing. Downward communication is someone who would be below the hierarchy of you. That would be where you're reminding employees to fill out their time logs or turn particular reports in on time and establish deadlines. And outward communication is outside of your workplace, and that has to do with perhaps vendors or other companies that you do business with. So knowing your audience and preparing it from the standpoint of, is it within my workplace or outside my workplace? And if it's in the workplace, is it to someone above me, someone at the same level below the hierarchy, and the like. So knowing your audience is another key element. The hierarchy of the reader plays a significant role in determining the tone of your communication. And there are 2 types. There's a writer-centered perspective and a reader-centered perspective. In a writer-centered perspective, it's mostly verbiage that has to do with, or use of pronouns that have to do with I or we. If I can answer questions, I'd be happy to do so. Or we shipped your order this morning. Or I'm very excited about this news. Instead of concentrating on the reader and using terms like you and your. So if you have questions, please ask. Your order was shipped this morning. You'll be glad to know that. So setting the tone of the communication is very important, and having it from a reader-centered perspective is more inviting. This is a short list of examples of abbreviations that you would definitely want to avoid in a workplace setting. Looking at the list, BTW, by the way, OMG, oh my God. Here's another one, HAND, or HAND, have a nice day. The TMOT, trust me on this. Now, all of these are very inventive. They are really not considered appropriate in a business-like environment. Instead, use complete words, complete sentences to achieve the appropriate business tone. Well, this concludes Chapter 1 of Workplace Communications by George J. Searles. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I wanted to thank you so very much.